Good evening and welcome to The Square. As many people and organizations were celebrating International Women's Day yesterday, some of the biggest issues that we still face, a challenge that we still face in Rwanda, is the rising rate of teenage pregnancies in Rwanda. Some of the questions, and this is not the first time we're having this conversation on The Square, some of the questions we'll be asking ourselves tonight are what interventions need to change, what needs to be done differently. And joining us for this very important discussion are our guests, and I'm going to start with our guests from the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion. We have with us the Director General of Family Promotion and Child Protection, Aline Umutoni. Aline, great to have you on The Square.
Thank you, Diana. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Also joining us is Olivia Promise Kabatesi, who is the founder and country director of Empower Rwanda. Olivia, great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone.
Great. My name is Diana Mpisi, host of The Square. As always, I'm joined by The Square resident panelists, and I'll start with resident panelist on my left, Brenna Namata. Always a pleasure to have you on The Square.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Charlie Haba, resident panelist. Charlie, always a pleasure having you on the show.
Same here, Diana. How are you?
Great.
Happy belated Women's Day to all the women who are with me.
Yes.
Tonight.
On this panel.
Yes,
and before we kick off, like we always do, midweek highlights. Charles, I'll start with you.
I was elated on Sunday. I visited the Remera Car-Free Zone for my first time. Full of life, full of innovativeness. From the time you step into the zone, there's people welcoming you with something different. You move elsewhere. The youthfulness, the security, the activity. And I was particularly impressed by that initiative. I think heads up to the city of Kigali and whoever is behind that. Yeah.
Great.
Yes,
I think Brenna and I will try and probably make a visit this this weekend. Brenna, any midweek highlights?
Yes. So yesterday was Women's Day, and as usual, it's a great PR moment. So you'll see a lot of statements. You'll see cakes, you see flowers, you see gifts. Okay? Now, some of us wonder whether when people look at women, they think the best they can do for them on that day is give them flowers and cake. Yeah? We may recall that Women's Day is over 100 years old, and its origins are in labor movements. So I hope that people who hold Women's Day celebrations will take it beyond cake and flowers and actually do the hard work of empowering women. And by this, I mean, on Women's Day, announce that you're closing the gender gap by this, at least. Or say, we have improved working conditions for women by doing ABCD. Now there's a lot of talk around lactation rooms, they're being launched. But we need to think about the reality. How many women work in a comfortable environment that they can actually have breast milk in a work environment? So it's good that we have these celebrations, but let's look at what we really need to empower these women. Close the gender gap. Let's have meaningful conversations in terms of how we can improve working conditions for women. Yeah.
Full agreement there with you, Brenna. So thank you for your midweek highlights, Charles and Brenna. And to our guests, once again, thank you so much for coming through on this very important occasion. Like I said earlier before, at The Square, teenage pregnancies are something we make it a deliberate point to talk about every now and then on a regular basis, because this is an issue whereby the numbers have been steadily growing. And if you'll allow me to read, the first question is to our guests from the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion. Teenage pregnancies has been on the rise for a couple of years, and I'll just start with some numbers. With 17,337 teenagers conceiving in 2017, 19,832 in 2018, 3,544 in 2019, 19,701 in 2020, and 23,000 in 2021. Aline, if we can kick off with you, what do you think, if you could just give us a broad picture, what are some of the reasons for this steady climb in unwanted teen pregnancies in Rwanda? And if you could also share with us some interventions that the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion is engaged with to curb this issue. Over to you, Aline.
Thank you, Diana. So once again, good evening. I will agree with the rise of the numbers, and I would like to say that this has various root causes that influence this rise. Among others, we can state the conflicts in the families that has been going on. We can also mention poverty, school dropouts that allow students to spend much time out of school. Also, some of these teen pregnancies might be related to the COVID-19. We can't miss to specify this, and we also can mention about the sexual and reproductive health, inadequate knowledge about that on the side of the children, the teens, and also the parents that doesn't offer adequate positive parenting to their children, and also the peer pressure. To mention a few, I could say that these are the major causes of the teen pregnancies that are on the rise. And you've tried to ask about what the ministry is doing. Allow me to say that teen pregnancy is not a standalone issue for the ministry. It's an issue that is multi-sectoral, which requires multi-sectoral interventions. Various stakeholders have to be involved in the process of reducing teen pregnancies, and also involve so much the parents, because the children need the education, they need to know their bodies, they need to understand sexual and reproductive health, and also have information and access to the services related to that. So the ministry and also other involved stakeholders are trying to put in place and also to implement the programs, and also to have guideline reviews, and also involve the stakeholders to see what could be done to reduce the teen pregnancies rate that is going higher. Thank you.
Thank you, Aline. I really like how you also come back to the issue of, we also need to begin at the family unit when it comes to this issue. Olivia, I'd like to ask you the same question, before I hear from Charles and Brenna on this issue. You're working on the ground with Empower Rwanda, giving social support to teenage mothers. But my question to you, in the research that you've done, in the work that you've done since the launch of Empower Rwanda in 2020, what do you think are some of the key reasons of this steady, increase in teenage pregnancies in the country?
Yeah, thank you, Diana. Empower Rwanda is a women-led organization that has a number of things to prevent any kind of violence against women and girls, also focusing on promotion of their rights. On this particular aspect of teenage pregnancy, I think I would just mention that it is deep-rooted from gender inequalities that have been there right from the start of time, and also from the patriarchal system that has put aside the rights of girls and promoted those of boys, or even given equal opportunities at different stages of their growth. So at Empower Rwanda, one thing that we have started doing, actually what we focus most, is on addressing cultural norms that underlie teenage pregnancies, especially when girls do not have right to make choices about their bodies. I'll just have to now categorize that into cultural and system-based kind of causes. The cultural norms, especially the culture of silence, where we are encouraged not to speak about things that happen to us as a way of being good girls, as a way of being good women in the society. So we cannot encourage girls to keep quiet when they are abused, and then we say that they should speak out when they are abused, and that hinders even the process of punishing the perpetrators, because they tend to keep silent about it, and they tend to negotiate with perpetrators. So that culture of trying to keep good with neighbors, like trying to keep good with neighbors, you don't have to, this is our neighbor, let's discuss at a family level and handle it. So you are just enjoying your relationship at the expense of this suffering girl that needs immediate support. Another thing is that we have a problem with the limited knowledge on sexual education or sex education. We did a research last year in September where we noticed that 70% of girls who were impregnated that period, 2020-2021, lacked sexual and reproductive health information. So the lack of information, even at a parental level, at a family level, so parents also lack this kind of information. Yes, they are the primary educators, the primary educators that should be educating these girls, even before they get to school. Another thing is defilement. 63%, according to our research, were impregnated out of defilement cases and rape. So we tend to handle the effects. We are trying to focus on effects instead of focusing on prevention. And victim blaming, we noticed that with interviews we had with perpetrators in Nyagatare prison, most of them were like, but these girls also show up like this. We were in a relationship. How can you tell me you were in a relationship with a girl who is 14 years old and you're 35 or you're 39? So that kind of victim blaming and stigmatizing girls over teenage pregnancy has also kept the girls in a silent mode. They don't report because they're stigmatized. They're not, they are seen to be the root causes of their issues. So that kind of mindset within the society has kept these numbers rising.
Thank you.
That I think.
Thank you very much. Olivia, we'll definitely be coming back to you later. Of course, I'd like to hear from the resident panelists. Brenna, I'll kick off with you with regards to the first question. Really, what do you think are the root causes for this significant trend of rising teenage pregnancy rates in Rwanda?
I must say that there's a lot of work that is being done in terms of trying to prevent them, actually. The government is doing a lot of work because over the last, I think, 2 years, we've seen several government agencies come up with specific programs really trying to tackle the challenge head on. And this includes, for instance, the sex offenders registry, yes, that was put in place, a lot of campaigns countrywide. So there's a lot of effort. But like she mentioned, it's a challenge because you have cultural aspects to it. That these girls are not allowed to speak. When it happens, it has to first be dealt with as a family matter. And we know from several studies that most of the time the offenders are actually family members, But also I think more critically, it's to look at the profile of these children who are vulnerable. One, you cannot ignore that there's a face of poverty. You have children from well-to-do families who are abused, but those families sort the matter. Either the child has access to medication that will terminate, or they are taken into another country, into a different setting. So let's first remember that there's a profile to it. Most of the children who have to deal with this for the rest of their lives are children from very vulnerable homes. So how you deal with that, again, is tough. It's not just educating them about to speak out, but also empowering, these homes. Secondly, I feel that the law enforcement agencies have been trying to set up gender desks to address some of these issues. But more has to be done. Again, because you have to, first of all, go back into the family structure and educate everyone that when they look at the girl child needs to be protected. And you don't protect them by telling them that they should keep their mouth shut, or by telling them that if you dress in a certain way, and a man speaks to you in a certain way, it is your fault. So it's tough. But I am confident that the progress we've seen over the last 3 or 2 years, really high-profile campaigns around teenage pregnancy, I hope will really get us somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like that you point out that there's actually been some significant work done, including the sex offenders registry, which I know we spoke with prosecution when we invited them to the show a couple of months back. Charles, over to you.
First of all, I believe that yes, I agree with Bana that there's been progress. There's been progress, and is it enough? Probably not. I wish that whoever cares to listen could use half the energy that was used to fight COVID to fight all this gender-based related violence, and especially teenage pregnancies. If we could just use 50% of that energy, we'll probably have nothing to talk about on this topic on this show. But Aline earlier on talked about stakeholders, and I think it's also extremely important to define who these stakeholders are, and because when you look at this, there's no boundary to the stakeholders. I think everybody is a stakeholder, from the parent to the taxi motor guy whom you pay on mobile money and insists on calling you to ask you how your morning was as a young girl, to a matron of a boarding school, to a coach of a young karate class, to a bouncer in a nightclub, to the list of stakeholders is really endless. It's very broad, and I think it's extremely important that we define who these stakeholders are and we approach them differently, because they have different ways in which they can be able to protect the young girls, or in which they actually meet and interact with the young girls. The third point I want to raise is that it's disturbing that you go to certain places. Earlier I talked about my visit to the Kafri zone, or you go to a supermarket or a boutique in your neighborhood, and it's very easy to access alcohol, even without being asked how old you are. So where am I going with this? My point is, when you're under the influence, and quite often you realize that some of these acts are done under the influence, you're more likely to go astray. We did speak the time on this particular topic when we had the prosecution, that the fact that that minors have access to alcohol is a problem in itself. It's very easy.
There's definitely a connection with that.
There's definitely a connection. Yes. So, and it's very easy for prosecution to just say, for law enforcement to just say that we'll ensure that there's a sign that under 18s are not allowed in bars and nightclubs. But what about the enforcement of that? What about in supermarkets where they can actually buy the alcohol? What about in their neighborhood boutiques? We can just walk in and walk and stay there probably whilst indulging. So I think that's another area that needs to be seriously given attention, such that even where people are going to be tempted to be under the influence, all those gaps are closed. Yeah.
I like the Charles, your point of saying in terms of the reasons we need to also look at the connection between easily available alcohol to minors.
Yes, yes.
You know, connected to this issue of teenage pregnancies. Yes, Brenna.
Yeah, just to say that I think if we look at the data, you'll find that the more awareness you have, the more reporting. So part of the numbers that we're seeing, I think, speak to the successful campaigns around encouraging victims to report. But until we have a national campaign that educates families to understand the importance of planned parenthood, we still have challenges, because in most cases, when this child is pregnant, within the family setting, they will say, you know, you might as well just get married, for instance, you know. Yeah. And without thinking about, the consequence of unplanned parenthood.
Yes.
So how about we prioritize educating, as many people as possible to understand the importance of planned parenthood, so that when a child is pregnant, it's not an option that they should be keeping the baby. It shouldn't be an option. So every effort has to be made to ensure that, first of all, children are not getting pregnant, but even for adults, it is planned parenthood. Yeah.
And I will definitely be coming back to, talking about sexual reproductive health and rights, planned parenthood, as you said. What are we doing regarding this that we need to do better? And my next question, just very briefly, I would like to, I was listening to you, Brennan, I'd like to ask you, Aline, with regards to what government is doing, specifically the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion, are there any actual campaigns, national campaigns, nationwide campaigns aimed at communities and families and talking about teenage pregnancies? Are there any that are happening right now at the moment or have happened in the past?
Thank you, Diana. I like how Haba stated that the increase of teen pregnancies cases rate might be also related to improved reporting system, which might also explain why the numbers are increasing, and which also shows that something is being done. I would also say that there are facilities, institutional framework that has been established, and also the law, the legal provisions. There are some laws that has put in place. And also, I would also come back to what Berna mentioned about educating parents before even they get married, so that they understand their role as parents in the future, and also plan ahead of time what they are required to do once they have children. And also, there are tools that are being developed. Maybe they are not out yet, but they are being developed so that every couple, before they get married, they go through this training, and also which will allow them to know how to manage in a healthy way the conflicts that may arise in their families. Another thing to mention, there are health facilities that have been put at district level, like Isange one-stop centers. What should be done actually is to encourage people to go and have access to those health services that has been put for them. I would also like to remind that these cases that have been on rise have been recorded from the teen mothers who delivered their babies from hospitals, which means that much effort, if it's put in prevention, but also in responding to this challenge by reporting, but also by educating the whole community, this can give positive results. As I mentioned earlier on, everything starts at family level. The parents should be involved, starting from an early age, to educate their children, and also other people who have access to these children, educators, even community members. I would say that there are also inshuti z'umuryango, which has been elected at village level. Actually, there are two, a male, inshuti y'umuryango, male, and one female, and also these issues have been discussed and still being discussed in imigoroba y'umuryango. Before, it was considered as umugoroba w'umubyeyi, and only the mother was feeling concerned, but now even the father figure in the lives of these children. This also will emphasize on increasing the male engagement. Those one who are working in boutique, as Charles Haber mentioned, the educators at school, even other people who meet these children, and also consider that if a perpetrator has not denounced this, the family members who know that should be held accountable, so that they understand the importance of reporting. Another thing is there are digitalized reporting system that we also encourage people to use, so that more information is collected. I would say that there are many initiatives that have been put in place, also the sexual and reproductive health education, and also the programs that come to intervene in case of teen pregnancies, the reintegration program. Once the teen mother has accessed the Isange Stop Center, what happens after she has delivered? She is back at home. How is she treated in the family? Is it possible to treat her without discrimination and stigma? How can it be reintegrated? She can be brought back to school, paid school fees for, and also given school materials, medical insurance, and so forth, so that they are supported to be reintegrated in their families. And also we have GBV clinics that we still encourage people to use, because once you are a GBV victim, you are a child that has been defiled. Go and access the service, because in those services there are health services, there are other economic support, because the ministry caters for the expenses that have been spent in accommodating that teen mother in the Isange Stop Center, or even the safe shelter or the safe rooms. So I think this is also something very important that's being done, and also, that is being done and also supported by the other interventions, because I would say that there is no one solution to this problem. Efforts should be put in prevention, but also in responding, and also by keeping and reminding the people that this is for everyone concerned. And also, I thank you for the platform. This also shows the concern of the media, which can support in making awareness, so that these things can be reduced or even banished in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aline. Personally, just before I go to the next part of the conversation, my take on this, having listened to you and my earlier question, I think what we need, and Bren, I don't know if you'll agree with me, is a sort of nationwide campaign. You remember how it was when we had nationwide campaigns to do with HIV/AIDS, and that sort of thing. Road safety. I mean, campaigns to become a cashless society. We actually have nationwide deliberate campaigns, and I think one of the ways in making this, tackling this issue head on, is putting it as a priority on our national agenda when it comes to communication and campaigns that go deep to grassroots levels, all the way to the top, to the level of policymakers. I really feel like, personally, one aspect of tackling this is deliberate nationwide campaigns involving all stakeholders, from schools to community leaders to family units, to government, to civil society. I'm yet to see that. We've been talking about teenage pregnancies, but it's sort of something we talk about, and in 2 months we wait for the end of the year and the next wave and the next numbers. So I think that is something we really need to focus on. I want to go to the next topic because you talked about, Aline, reintegration of teen mothers back into society and sort of social support. And I would like to take this to you, Olivia. We know that Empower which was founded in Rwanda in 2020. And interestingly, the reason at that time you went to Rwanda was because of the high teenage pregnancy rates at that time in that district. So Empower Rwanda provides social support to teen mothers, providing them with life skills as well as saving schemes. I asked you earlier, what is the reality on the ground? So if you could just share more about the work Empower Rwanda does in reintegrating teenage mothers back into school, giving them life skills. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you very much, Diana. Right, I'll just have to start that one of the things that we do in the response, as a response mechanism, is first of all, to have these girls brought together and given psychosocial support. They are given counseling so they can restore their dignity, restore their hope, and have confidence in themselves to be able to speak out, and be able also to address their issues holistically. I think our approach is intersectional. We use intersectional approach because these girls face multiple vulnerabilities, compounded vulnerabilities, right from the abuse period until they deliver, and now difficulties in the early parenting. So one of the things that we bring them together, we try to reintegrate them in their families. We do dialogues with their families because they have suffered a lot of rejection from their own families and no support, which actually exposes them to more abuse, especially if they have to depend on the perpetrators for survival. So they are abused continuously because they don't have family support. And it's also important to note that this is a category of girls that actually doesn't have where to belong. They are not women, they are not girls, they are not considered children back at home, they are in between. So it's a section that is isolated from the rest of the society, and probably they are blamed for what happened to them. And that this keeps them in a vulnerable state that does not allow them to progress. So another thing is that we do the campaign for their return to school. We know that education is actually almost everything. If you want to empower someone, they need to be educated. They are deprived of the education right. Their potentials, their dreams are cut short just in a small period of time. Just the period of 8 months makes your whole future done. So what we do is we engage the duty bearers, the parents, service providers like schools, to make sure that these girls are returned to school, also considering that they are from poorest families, most of them, they are from poorest families. We dialogue with the duty bearers, the government officials, that such girls, since the government has also a responsibility to educate these children from the poorest families, even the parents themselves. So if the parent cannot afford school fees, at least remain with the kid. Take care of the kid while the mom goes to school, and then the government offers other incentives. So this is the advocacy we've done, of course, with also us supporting the provision of scholastic materials and also offering safe space for them to air out their issues and do self-advocacy. Another thing is that we do much education on sexual and reproductive health rights and do advocacy for easy access to related services. While we appreciate the government's efforts in putting up the laws in place, I'll take an example of safe abortion law. Safe abortion law, but to what extent is it known at grassroots level? So we realize that much as these good laws were drafted to help the victims of rape, the victims of defilement, but are they known to these girls? Are they known to their mothers who end up doing it traditionally and they end up in prison? So this has really, it has multiple compounded effects around it, even to their own mothers. So what we do is awareness of such laws. Much as we also doing awareness that such services should be decentralized. You can access, for instance, safe abortion service at a district hospital. So how about someone who is far in the village there, who doesn't probably even have enough transport to take them? Yet we are saying that such services should be accessible, affordable, and available. So, but when you look at the whole implementation framework, you realize that they are not as much as accessible as it is mentioned. So they should be decentralized, at least to a level, at a sector level, where they can easily be accessed without going through a lot of processes, because, I mean, this is a confidential service that someone doesn't have to involve everyone in the process. And also, we are doing trainings on positive masculinity, parents. I mean, because most of these cases are a result of power abuse. Men are brought up in a way that, I mean, they're the ones that decide. We bring up our girls, when we talk about sex, I mean, everything you have to do to appease the man. You have sex is for a man. When he wants, you provide. You have no choice. You have no right to discuss. So this actually keeps them in a vulnerable state, in a weak state to make decisions. So first, yes, you are a man. You have all the powers, but you shouldn't abuse it because you're taking care of someone. This is where we do most of the things around that. But also, we are doing a lot of advocacy. I mean, they should reduce the consent age. If we're talking about 18 being the consent age, it means, and we have done a research where like 40% of girls who got pregnant had their first sex at age 14. So if you start, for instance, having sex at age 14 and your consent age is 18, what happens in between? You have to consult your mom or your dad or your guardian for approval for you to get a condom. You know, how do I tell my mom to escort me? I mean, also considering the cultural aspect, where you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. You know, what if I don't get married? What would happen? I mean, I'm deprived of my sexual right. So it's important that the consent age is also reduced to make sure that such services are independently accessed by these girls. Another thing is that we also have to consider that it's important also to talk to these girls, give them a platform, let them speak, let them know their rights. We do a rights awareness. They should know their rights and they should be able to claim them when they are not respected. And we also do awareness on holding the perpetrators. I mean, we do a lot of, like you mentioned, we do a lot of campaigns. Everyone now knows, for instance, serving in Ejoheza. It's known up to the lowest structure of the community. How about perpetrators? Can't we hunt them down? And they are held accountable. And these girls receive justice. So another thing that we offer at Empower Rwanda is to be a channel of these girls to access justice. We provide legal support in partnership with organizations like Rwanda Bridges to Justice. I mean, they all give lawyers. We have female lawyers because we have realized that when you have also a male lawyer, it's very difficult to have just kind of judgment. So we believe female lawyers can offer such a great service from a personal perspective, because I mean, some of us are victims of GBV at some level. We face it at different levels. So at least when you speak from, we have female lawyers who assist these girls, report perpetrators, because we notice that they also lack access to legal services. They don't have enough capacity to hire lawyers. They don't have enough capacity. They don't even have enough knowledge about the reporting channels. You know, you find that you're told to go to the district and talk to Marge, all this stuff. But I mean, these girls from deep villages, they even know that such a person is at the district. I doubt they do. And even if they did, how many citizens or community members that would go to that one person at the district level? How can that person manage? So it is important that such services are decentralized. And also what we do is education. Like I mentioned, we support these girls to go back to school. We do awareness on GBV prevention. We do advocacy campaigns on GBV prevention, which actually results into teenage pregnancies. And then also we encourage positive parenting. Yeah, that's most of the interventions around that.
Thank you so much, Olivia. I'd just like to go to a Twitter feed to read some of the comments that are coming in and also have time to respond to them. If we could have the first tweet on our screens. This tweet is from John, who says that we need to see all perpetrators of child defilement brought to book. This shall serve as a great deterrent. The current statistics of those investigated, prosecuted, and convicted compared to the number of teen mothers is worrying. Absolutely. This is something I know we've also touched on the show before. The next tweet coming in, if we could also have that on our screens, says that the numbers are not increasing. Instead, the data collection has improved. This is something I think, Charles and Aline, you've mentioned, which also is quite worrying in itself, nonetheless. We have another tweet coming in from Annette. Annette says that, Olivia, you are on fire. Point up to point on root causes of teenage pregnancy. Way to go, Empower Rwanda. We also have another tweet coming in, if we could also have that on our screens. And this tweet is from Amos, who says that for the case of eradication, developing a community-based approach which utilizes school sex education integrated with parent, church, and community groups, increasing teenage knowledge of contraception, and counseling plus medical, psychological health, education, and nutrition. So he's just lumped up together, some possible scenarios whereby we have when we're addressing teenage pregnancies. We also had some more tweets coming in, and I will take time to read them later. But as they come in, we have a tweet from Christophe, who says, social media has exposed teenagers. With that kind of uncontrolled exposure, irresponsible men take advantage of the limited level of decision-making and reproductive health literacy. Therefore, parental reprimands would be a suggestion. Thank you very much to Christophe. I know there are a couple of tweets coming in. I know one tweet said, why are we not talking about male violence as some of the causes of these teenage pregnancies in terms of the root causes. So with that said, I'd like to go to the next part of the conversation, just, sort of concluding remarks on the what next. What do we do next? The insanity has been termed as doing something the same way over and over again and expecting different results. And the results that we're seeing, despite all the interventions that Aline has mentioned, initiatives such as Empower Rwanda, the interventions, Charles, you mentioned, and Berna, government and stakeholders that are doing, the numbers are steadily increasing. What's going wrong? What do we have to do differently? And I think in this conversation, moving forward, I think on a national level, we need to take some bold decisions. Bold steps need to be taken. I personally, and I like how you mentioned it earlier on, Olivia, looking at the age of consent for giving these sexual reproductive health services, if we can lower it, to be able to give teenagers, if it's condoms, and not just talking about abstinence, because the fact is they're having sex. So what can we do as schools? What can we do as community leaders? What can we do as government? And I just want this last part of the conversation, some sort of radical change is needed to really address this issue. And Bren, I'll kick off with you, Charles, and over to our guests as briefly as possible.
I think, first of all, we need to amplify and support the work that people like Empower Rwanda are doing. Government can't do it alone, so you need a lot of partners to make it a priority. Two, a lot of awareness campaigns, really. Because you need to change the mindset.
I like how Olivia said, we all know about EJO.
Yeah,
but in terms of campaigns, this one is really lacking.
Yeah, so to change the mindset, for our community to look at the girl child, one, as valuable and not just as somebody who is there and is meant to give birth and get married, because most of the time, again, because of the cultural aspect, this child will not get the support they need because if you're pregnant, yes, you're expected. A child will be referred to as a woman, even when they're, a child. And demystifying sex education, because again, as you try to push and say lower the age, come to 16, these children need to understand their bodies, both boys and girls need to understand what's happening, and they need access. We can all bury our head in the sand and pretend and take the moral view, but it doesn't. The pregnancy will still come out. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Charles?
I mean, excuse my Spanish, but whether we like it or not, kids are chowing.
Oh God! You did say that.
Olivia broke it down to us. She said, by the time girls are of age, and of course it was a very general statement, but I think she gave figures 14 and 18. If I stand to be corrected, I said by the time she's that age, and I did read somewhere in one of the local papers the time when the sex offenders list was published, and one of the offenders had in defense that when he was having sex with that young girl, she was teaching him how to do certain things. So, but what's the story here? The story is what Aline was saying, that prevention is not all that matters. It's yes, we can't run away from the fact, and I believe that's what you guys are saying. So the one of the suggestions I want to make along those lines, because we already know the statistics are not lying, that young girls are beginning to have sex at an early age, quite often with even their fellow young boys. Because that is happening, can we ensure that there is a message everywhere that matters? You go into a toilet in a public place, you go into a KBS bus, you go into, everywhere that matters. In church, in some faiths, it is even forbidden to talk about marital sex. So you can imagine how worse it would be to talk about premarital sex. So yeah. Yes. So whether we like it or not, we have to demystify this and be very, very deliberate about this. I also want to throw one comment around one of the tweets that came in around social media. Now, I think Bana and Diana, we spoke about divergent opinions on a video that went viral of a very old man who was very proud of being in a marital relationship with a girl who was 60 years or younger. And such videos will go around, and we will be encouraged to look at them and comment, and they'll get viral. The same way harmful content is not spread, and all these social media platforms, Twitter and what have you, will have an option for you to tell you that this content should not be. If you can even have an option to report that it is content that you don't want to consume, and you don't pass. Yes, you report it. So I think there are some of the tools. I didn't mention tools earlier on, but some of those tools to ensure that yes, fine. Prevention is not the ultimate solution, but even when it has happened, don't promote it. And I think that's something else that would be extremely helpful. Yes.
Just one last tweet before we go to our guests to give closing remarks, and this tweet is from Donata, who says that in this regard we should explore deeply if we do not have child marriage related issues. Thank you for amplifying the teenage pregnancy issue, the Rwanda, and that is a very important comment in terms of child marriage issues in the country. What do we know about that? I would like to give closing remarks, and I'll start with you, Aline, briefly on, just some sort of ideation on what can we do differently to deal with this issue, because these are generations that are being negatively impacted, you know, and it's a cyclical thing. A teenage mother who gives birth, that child is most likely to fall into the same cycle of also being a teenage mom. So just very quickly, Aline, and over to you, Olivia, just closing remarks on the way forward.
Thank you, Diana. I like how it has been tackled in different angles, and I believe that everyone's responsibility have been heard. I will reiterate that this is everyone's concern. If everyone in the community, in the country feel concerned, I think even the interventions, different programs will have a positive result on this issue. I will also come back on the role of the families, the communities, the churches and mosque. I will also speak about the media, the educational institutions. The interventions or the discussions shouldn't be top-bottom only. It can also come from bottom-top, so that joining efforts, creating synergies, and also supporting the positive interventions is done or considered by everyone. So in short, I would also say that we remind or encourage the victims of defilement to use the services that have been put there for them, so that even though they have been defiled, they have got pregnant and delivered, they can be easily reintegrated and also supported in medically or even socially, psychologically, even economically, because these teen mothers, if they go back to school, there will be future employees or even entrepreneurs, and also they can also access other services like reporting system, and also reporting to established institutions such as RIB, and also they can feel, most importantly, to educate and to empower the girl child in our country.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aline. Olivia, over to you, closing remarks as briefly as possible.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things that we should focus on is putting the root causes that actually underlie gender inequalities right from the families, which promotes the boy child at the expense of the girl child, because we have seen that most of the boys who impregnate young girls, even when they're in school together, boys go back to school and actually they are not stigmatized, they're not blamed. I mean, they're considered as men. Yeah, you have a kid, wow. But when the girl has one, it is an issue. So I think that inequality right from childhood should also be addressed. And also we should decentralize sexual and reproductive health services to be able to accessed by all the youth without lower the consent age, and also promote gender equality at all levels. Positive masculinity should be one of the focus that we should train men and boys to undertake. And also rights awareness, laws awareness. People, communities should know the laws in place, should know their rights, and should also be empowered enough to claim them when they are not respected. We should also focus on sexual education right from elementary level. We just noticed that we have kids having sex from age of 13, 14. So if we wait to have sexual education in secondary schools, then we have missed a point. In between, someone would not make it. So sexual education should be lowered to elementary level, of course packaged according to the age, so that everyone is accessible. Yeah, and definitely as a close that we should have coordinated efforts. Let everyone play their role. Let parents be responsible enough. Let the duty bearers do their role as well. And also let the children know what is right and what's not, right from their childhood level. So it requires coordinated efforts to address it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Charles, very briefly.
Yeah, just one thing that Olivia said earlier on that tickled my mind about rights.
Yeah.
It is every girl's right to look hot.
Yes.
And as boys and men, we should not take advantage of girls' hotness.
Okay. I would like to thank our guests. If we could have our screens with our guests once more. Olivia, on behalf of Empower Rwanda, Aline, on behalf of the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion, thank you very much for coming on to the show tonight. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brenna, Charles, always a pleasure hosting this with you, the show with you. To our viewers, thank you for keeping the comments coming in. This is a very sad issue that we are dealing with as a country, and any opportunity to amplify this issue, I think at the Square we will take it seriously. And I think the decision to talk about it just after International Women's Day is just to highlight, yes, we may be celebrating Women's Day, but look at the issues facing girls. The real issues, exactly. To our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. To our partners, Uti Collection and Bourbon Coffee, thank you for always supporting the Square. Have a good night. See you again next week. Thank you.